guess I'll call the meeting to order. Does anyone have any citizens' comments?
I have two. My name is Michelle Hayes. I live at 712 Jackson, and I am, what the heck am I? Organizer of Bronco Park Neighbors. I do something with Bronco Park Neighbors. One thing I am here to advocate that Ridgeville work with the city in setting up the half-day programs so that we get the same services for our passes on this side of town, especially since we're paying extra taxes. That they do on the northwest or the west side and and I also just wanted to make a comment. Before I took over Bronco Park Neighbors, it was run by a lovely lady named Yvonne Vanden Avon, who passed away this Saturday. And pretty much everything that I do in the community is standing on her shoulders. So I just wanted that on the formal record that Yvonne is gone and that we miss her greatly. And I wish that she knew how amazing Bronco Park is now, because most of the work that she did, like she and her companion did the garden plantings that are all along Custer, they're still there. And a lot of the peace activities that we did in Bronco Park that are now taking fruition came from her. So I wanted to throw that on the record, because she was a big part of what we did through Bronco Park.
Anyone else?
Thanks, Michelle.
We just came, we had 21 something. We understood that on the agenda was middle school programming and the half-day issue. And, you know, I didn't have a prepared speech other than to say that as a parent, you know, one of my biggest concerns was that my child didn't have anything to do after school. And after-school programming at the middle school is not, it's not reliable. They don't know when it starts or when it's going to be going, and they don't communicate with parents. It's not really the way you want your 11-year-old to have to come home as a single parent and not many options. But I can say that just tonight what happened with my neighbor's daughter was locked out of the house. She left her key. So this is an 11-year-old girl. So she's a tiny little thing and she didn't have a way to get. Unfortunately, I was working from home today. And so I was able to be home for her. But there's a lot of 11-year-olds that are going home with nothing to do. So it's real important for our parents. I wish there were more here, but
And for the record, the Shoots PTA meeting is tonight, so there was Mr. Mack would have been here, but he was at the PTA meeting as our PTA representative.
Thank you, and I just want to give a fist pump to your son for coming.
All right, well, thank you for coming, and we appreciate your sharing your comments. Okay, so we're going to do our minutes, approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of October 12th.
Anybody second that?
second.
Okay.
Patrick, if you don't mind, I can't quite hear.
I made a motion to approve
Okay.
the minutes of October
All right, thank you.
Okay, so corporate bills,
Oh, shoot.
You guys are really moving them.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Corporate bills, I'll go over the unusuals, if that's okay. Advanced disposal, Evanston, that's 2 loads of crates, cardboard packaging from the Brummel Park play equipment, which will begin installation on Monday, they promised. So that's 2 loads it was too much for the dumpsters here, so we took it over on our trucks. As we go down, B&Z Electric is part of the lights. We're looking we had them come out and locate wires for us so we could see where they ran and if they were intact, and they were a disaster. So that's part of the Cayman Light light repair that we're going to do soon. As we go down, Evanston Lumber stage repair, stairs were fixed. Evanston Organics, when we took the play equipment out at Brummel Park, we filled low spots throughout the park. Fish Keg, we bought dinner for the staff. We had several volunteers staying here through early evening for the pumpkin patch event here at Ridgeville. As we go down further, Illinois State Police background check, Jewel Foods, some supplies, water, and bags for the pumpkin patch. Little Caesars Pizza, a lot of food. Year ending for farmers market staff and vendors. They had the worst pizza in town, but they enjoyed it. Meineke Garden Center, pumpkins for the Halloween event. You'll see Most Dependable Fountain. We ordered some parts for our fountains in our parks. Neopost is a rental fee for the postage machine upstairs. Nick and Ernie's, we had a lot of repairs needed to do on the F-250, which will plow the snow. That's the truck that you see Ruben and Marcos in usually. So those were mostly brakes, rotors, pads, and labor. And then a big one, Play Power LT Farmington, $41,256. That is the play equipment. It is here. Obviously, we do have it. And it'll be installed, as I said earlier, beginning Monday. Pure Electric is some parts for the lights at Cayman East. $60 to me. I paid the Halloween staff, the volunteers, quote, volunteers, $20 each. And then Squarespace is our website subscription, and that's the unusuals.
I move to accept the corporate monthly bill summary dated November 9, 2017 for the amount of $61,877.54.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Petty cash?
Petty cash. Yep.
Petty cash is a doozy. Only one, $250 to Joe Frankel. He was our entertainment on the stage right there for our Halloween event.
I move to accept the petty cash amount dated November 8, 2017 for the total amount of $250 even.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I think now we could probably push up the discussion of the middle school program. So if you'd like to present something for us.
Sure. Good evening, I'm Bob Loriker. I'm with the City of Evanston. I'm the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. This evening, I would like to discuss with the board an opportunity that we really feel is needed in this area. Is a middle school programming. So that would be on the half days when kids would get out of school, or actually it would be from like 3 till 6, Monday through Friday. Would be how our proposal would be, is to work with you to set it up over at the King Field House. It would be a partnership with the city and the Ridgeville Park District, where we would provide part of the staffing cost. The Ridgeville Park District would also assist with that. It would be run similar to how our other sites are run. So we currently run, or probably the best example is over at Mason Park. So if you have an opportunity, please stop by and visit Mason Park any day after school. We have in there a number of middle school youth who stop in. It is, at that site particularly, we have opportunities for them to do some tutoring work. We have sort of a structured program, and then also a drop-in program. So we're running a dual site there. We also provide snacks for the kids. So it's an opportunity that we actually work with the United States Department of Agriculture. So it's actually a reimbursement program that the city has. We would probably set up something similar if it all works out, all comes together over at the Cayman Park site. Programming, again, is sort of loosely structured. It's not heavily structured. We also bring in opportunities when we have them for volunteers to do tutoring, other types of special activities, just to keep the kids engaged. At the Mason Park site, we do have a large screen TV. We have an opportunity to play video games. We do have computers in that are actually on the site that the city has set up. Our thoughts would be is that a lot of the kids do have, whether they're the Chromebooks or some kind of iPad from the schools, is to not so much set up a computer lab there, but actually to have some kind of Wi-Fi there, so there would be some connectivity, because if you didn't know, the school did not continue their wireless plan this year like they had done in the past. So it provides an opportunity for the kids to come over, do some homework, have a safe space to spend time after school, and then also to engage socially. The Alderman Fleming, has been working on this proposal with the city, and we're currently in our budget discussion with for the 2018 fiscal year. So at first, when we first put it together, it looked like it was going to be a cost throughout the entire year, about a program that would go from January through May, with a break during the summer months, and then would pick up again in September and go September through the end of December. Total cost we figured for the first year, that was the operational pieces and purchasing some supplies, was approximately $50,000. We did anticipate they were charging a fee at first for the program, so we said there would be a slight fee of anywhere between $20 and $50, depending on how the program all got put together. So we try to recoup part of the cost to offset the operational cost. Then that's when we started the discussion with Brian and Natalie in regards to an opportunity, because of the fact that we know down at Shute School that there's a great need. We've met with YOU as another partner to the table, to where they potentially would be able to come in and provide some support to the program. So with that, it's sort of a short synopsis of what our thoughts were and plans. Of course, anything is open. We just think it's a great opportunity and great for the neighborhood and great for the community. I'll take any questions.
Can I say a few things?
Uh-huh.
So we've had discussion with Cicely, 8th Ward, or 9th Ward Alderman, Bob, Lawrence, a few commissioners. Dan was at the meeting. At any rate, basically, what I think our request has been to help with the larger of the two employees in terms of dollars. And so we have to look at the recreation side of the budget, because this is really a recreation program where the kids will be able to enjoy themselves, play video games, like he said, socialize. If they choose to do homework, maybe go ice skating in January and February. Great program. The hard part for us is to find the cash, because we're 4 months into our budget, and it wasn't planned for. So I asked Jerry to do a little research. Natalie and I looked at the budget and tried to figure out where we could help. We would call it a pilot program for what we would call the second semester, January 8th through late May. And that second employee, or the larger of the two employees, would be about $6,000. We can find that. We're going to have some issues with Wi-Fi. We have to get a definite number, but that's going to be necessary. Then I talked to insurance, and basically insurance kind of said, let the city run the program, have a working agreement, the building's theirs on the days they need it. We help with wherever we can help, and so far we can help with the larger of the two employees, and still looking at Wi-Fi. We have plenty of board games, art supplies, things of that nature here to help. So that's where it kind of sits from the budget standpoint. There are some state statutes that we have to abide by, which Jerry has done a great job in researching. So we would kind of substitute one thing for another until later on in the year, and then we'd figure out exactly what we can and cannot do to finish the year. We can finish this program with the 6, if that's approved, and move forward on January 8th. And then we would sit down with Bob, get a working agreement, and then have our attorney sign off on it and our insurance sign off on it. So that's basically where it sits from my standpoint.
So basically, we'd be responsible for one employee and just the upkeep of the building, as usual.
Yeah, well, what we would do is, insurance would request that they invoice us for that employee, and then we'd send them that check. And they would go through city payroll and all that kind of stuff. This is going to be their program, and we're going to observe, be a pilot, and then next year, let's say that it goes gangbusters, it's a great thing, which it probably will be. Then we start planning for next year in April or May, and line items.
Another way to look at it is it's a city-run program where they're just renting the facility from us at like $1 or $10 or some amount.
And we pay for one employee.
And then
Yeah.
we make a contribution to the city for the costs of the program.
Do you ever use AmeriCorps employees?
We do occasionally. For a program like this, probably we would have structured staff who were there. We would bring them in as other volunteers, like we bring in both Northwestern students and ETHS students who are looking to do community service work.
But you'd have one employee sort of overseeing that?
So
Or
what
two.
There would actually be, we would have 2 employees on site. So if your board would agree to 1 employee, or 1 contribution to help fund 1 employee, the city would also have a secondary employee. We do like to have 2 employees on site for any kind of program we run.
So an AmeriCorps employee is not considered an employee?
No.
Okay.
I did reach out to Northeastern, their coordinator, students who are interested in this kind of thing. They're studying this, and it's a Melanie Buhan. I can give you her card, but she said that they have, students in school that would love to apply to something like this. It would be basically 3 hours a day, I think, 3 to 6, so it fits sort of into their schedule, and it would help them too on their path towards becoming teachers. So she just wanted you to know that if you wanted to reach out to her, she's got a bunch of kids that would love to apply.
That'd be great.
So would we be the ones hiring the 1 employee and you'd be hiring the other?
The way I just understood it is that the city would be the responsible party for the employees. What we'd probably like to do though is we'd probably ask Brian or Natalie to sit in on the interview process just to make sure that we could come up with a good team. We want to develop a good working program and relationship for long term. So I think it would be important that they share their input during the time when we were to interview those individuals.
Okay.
So does the city pay for the Mason Park program?
Yes, we do.
So that's been in the budget before?
It has been. That's been a long-standing program for the city for probably at least 15 years now.
And this is not in the budget, but potentially could be in the budget.
Yes.
But given the state of deficits or whatever, that's the issue, that it's not going to get funded?
The program is currently being proposed as a new program from the alderman. I believe it sounds like she's getting support from the other aldermen and the other elected officials regarding this proposal. So that's one of the reasons why she's asked us to try to move it forward and have it engage with both your board as well as YOU and others to see if we could have the support, including Shoot School.
Okay, I guess I'm thinking long-term too, beyond, if Ridgeville was willing to do $5,000 or $6,000 for this next semester, so to speak, what does that mean next year? When we start thinking of our budget in May or whenever we start talking about it, is it going to double then for Ridgeville?
I think what we would do is we would come back and we would, evaluate the program in April, see how it's going as you're preparing your 2018-19 budget, and to have a discussion if, that's something you would want to continue, or if if the program's not working out and it doesn't have the support of the kids, then, maybe it's not a program that doesn't run any longer.
What age group are we talking exactly? Or is there a defined age group?
It's a middle school kids. It's middle school.
So 6th, 7th, and 8th grade?
Correct, yes.
And for us as a district, normally we get presented one meeting, an idea, and then it's the next meeting where we would make a decision. So that would put us in December, taking a vote. Would the city feel comfortable waiting that long?
I believe that, I can't speak
Yeah.
really 100%, but I believe if the intent was there, I believe that, the city would feel good about moving forward with the program starting in January.
My own take is that I do support this idea very much for a number of reasons. One, there's a community need. We're part of the community and tax-based program. And I also like the idea that we could collaborate with the project with the city and possibly YOU, it sounds like, as well. And to me, the more we can collaborate with other partners in our community, it just makes us a stronger district, and I think we serve our constituents better So I do want to go forward with this and hopefully have a decision by our next meeting.
Jerry, do you have any thoughts or comments about the situation?
Leading up to tonight's meeting, there's been a lot of discussion, and from that, I'm comfortable that solutions have been found to all the questions or answers, but it probably merits my spending a minute kind of discussing those questions in front of the group, just so that it's on the record more than anything. Anytime we're going to start a new program and talk about the money dimension of it, I am always going to come at it with the same set of questions. You know, are we talking this fiscal year or next fiscal year? Because that's got an impact on what our options are and what we can do. The answer being that it's this fiscal year, our problem is our budget is set in concrete. That means right now the only option we have is to spend unbudgeted money. The 6,000 is the ballpark number I understand we're talking about. We have to we have to substitute this program for something else in our budget. Brian has identified 2 categories of expenses that are going to yield the $6,000. He's going to he's going to substitute the $6,000 payment to the city with the $4,000 that was budgeted to replace the lighting in Keenan Field, Keenan East, and with $2,000 for recycling improvements throughout the parks. In January and then beyond, we would have the option to perhaps reinstate those expenditures by substituting them for unexpended money. If we truly have unexpended money in the Brummel Park project, and if we can classify these improvements as improvements, we would pay for them out of the capital fund with the Brummel Park money. That's
So it's
kind
doable.
of, yeah, so that's kind of how we're pulling it off. You know, the other dimension of it is, you know, in terms of numbers, initially we were hearing numbers as high as the 50,000 number. The problems that would arise with numbers like that are we can only do these substitutions up to 10% of the money in the fund by law. So in the capital fund, when we start talking about a number larger than $10,000, we would not be able to do that in this fiscal year. In the recreation fund, if we found a way to do it, we could go as high as $35,000 of substitutions in this year. But the only other option that would have been available, we didn't have to go down this road, would be to develop an amended budget. But you basically have to repeat the process that we went through from May until September, meaning you have to develop a tentative budget, vote on it, wait 30 days, have a public hearing, pass a new motion, and that would put us past the deadline for getting the levy ordinance in, and we wouldn't be able to, you know, even if you agreed to appropriate it, you had no mechanism to raise revenue to appropriate it, so that would have been some of the problems. So those are some of the kinds of issues that were talked through and worked out. The last issue that was kind of talked about in advance was initially the message that was reaching me was it was an educational program after school. And that problem with that is we can't spend money on an educational program because we're only authorized by the state to spend money on recreation. But as it's been described tonight and as it's been, as you know, we've kind of talked it through, it pretty clearly falls as a recreational program. You can find definitions. The law itself is kind of vague about what is recreation, but there are other resources we can point to that define recreation and make it clear we're within our authority to spend the money on this type of a program. So that's a lot of the pre-meeting discussion that happened through a lot of dialogue in various ways. I'm comfortable tonight, we're good. And credit really to Brian. I mean, that's nothing I did. Brian had to do the hard work with Natalie to figure out what could he manage in the budget and rearrange to pull this off. And he would just check in with me, is this, you know, he'd come to me with this idea, and I'd say, no, that's not in the rules. Come to me with another idea, and said, yep, that's within the rules. So he found the magic formula.
One thing Cicely brought up was maybe we could get some ice skates. If you guys have some extra ones laying around, because we've got an ice rink right there.
Got some weather laid around too?
Yeah, it's coming.
So,
We could definitely talk about it.
so
The weather?
what are the loose ends? The 6,000 represents the cost of the extra employee. That's basically what we're committing to. But in addition to that, it's creating Wi-Fi. Do we have a cost for that yet?
Yeah, well, go ahead, tell them what you got so far.
We went to Mason and looked at the setup that they have there, and
It's beautiful.
Bob will have to explain it to you because I am not well versed in it, but it's a fiber
Fiber optic?
So we're on a fiber, if I could, if you
Yes.
don't mind. So just to give you, to go back to the $50,000 amount, so just so you have an idea. So one of the things that we tried to take a look at is really putting together a real strong program. So we talked about, and this was when we were just in concept of taking a look at a program, we talked about purchasing furniture, so they would have couches and tables, and similar to what's over at Mason, a large screen TV, and actually, we were talking about having 5 or 6 actually computers there, computer workstations. So when you put all of that together, plus we actually, we're looking at the fiber, and that's where I'm leading to. So the fiber piece alone, doing that at one of our sites would probably range about $8,000, just because then what we would do is we would have a permanent fiber location there. And so there are other options, and I know that you started to talk about that, so.
Yeah, so I called around. AT&T and RCN do not service that particular corner of the universe for some reason. So Comcast is the only option that we would have. I still need to do some research because you can either do a business plan, like a business account, or you can do a residential account. Because of what we are, I think we probably have to be a business account. So the price for that they quoted me would be $125 a month in order to, I explained that to them what we wanted to do, how many devices would be there, if we want Wi-Fi so that kids can log into their own personal devices. And the estimate that I was given was about $125 a month, plus whatever installation is necessary.
So is the
We're
installation nominal, or is it $7,000, $8,000?
It's not.
Well, it's $1,500 to $1,800.
And that's something we could use for all of our constituents, right?
Absolutely.
Anybody who's at the park can use that.
Well, and our programming in the summer can use
Yeah.
it, our camps can use it, I'm sure
And would that go beyond the actual building, or would it just be in the building?
I'm not 100%, but I would say probably just the building and maybe like right outside.
Not too far.
I can access our Wi-Fi if I'm standing outside, but I can't go too far. I think it would probably be the same thing. But the benefit too of getting what they explained to me of the business account versus a residential account is that it's a priority. So there's like 24-hour technical service. There's a whole list of other benefits too, so.
I'm a little surprised RCN, they spend a lot of time in our alley. And how do they not service that facility when they service all the other houses on the block?
I talked to like 3 different people from RCN. I talked to like 4 different people from AT&T because we're AT&T here. So that's who I called first to see if we could just kind of expand our plan. And I had like 2 or 3 different people run searches and do like site checks, and they all said, no. RCN, from what I understand, is relatively new to the South Evanston area, and their coverage is kind of spotty in terms of where it is. So.
But I think the point is they've been sort of aggressive in trying to get new customers. So
Yeah.
if they service the area, it would be nice to know how aggressive they might be.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And is there a certain amount of bandwidth that we need?
Yes, and that's what I was quoted for. For the, I can't remember exactly what she said. I wrote it down upstairs, but again, like I explained what we wanted to do with it and how many devices, and she said that would be more than enough to stream and.
So at this point, we're just talking about having kids come in, bring their own Chromebooks, working on their stuff that they've got, not really at this point supplying all those computers.
That's correct, that would be the plan, and I believe what we would do too is, supplement it. Brian mentioned board games, there's some board games, and if we had an opportunity to do something, move some supplies around from Mason or one of our other sites, we would work with the staff and make sure that happens. We want to make it fun.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
There are also lots of grants available for things like that. I know Best Buy does an after-school program grant. There's other businesses too. I mean, that will take some time. We won't have that by January, but it's definitely something that I could look into.
I mean, it sounds like a good program, and, you know, obviously it fits in with what we do. I mean, it's recreational in the neighborhood. I think I just want to be a little bit cautious though, and kind of stepping into this, and then all of a sudden we're spending, you know, $10,000 or $15,000. So I just want to be a little bit cognizant of that. I mean, I think that would be.
I think we've got the challenge, just get through this fiscal
Through
year.
this, yeah.
When we start the planning for next fiscal year, you can take a step back and look at,
Evaluate what's occurred.
and we've always got to kind of keep in mind, we're off cycle with the city by 6 months on the budgeting process. So,
Right.
you know, they're, you know, quoting a number that's a year into half of our next fiscal year already, and that's only, you know, half of that applies to us now, but when we talk the next go round, he'll be talking about his last 6 months of his year, but we need to be talking the full year beyond
Can I
that.
make a motion tonight?
So one other thing I would just want to discuss was, it will be probably at least 12,000 for the next fiscal year. So is that something you can foresee us being able to handle?
We can look at it next budget season. I mean, that's
So-
your-
so
that's your
CP
next bite at the apple.
Let's hope CPI is 4.9%.
Well, or, you know, it's way too early to be thinking what we can pull off next budget season. You know, but it's-
To me, it's worth the pilot program to see where we're heading, and then in April, we can do a kind of a comprehensive plan. We can't do this, we can't do that, whatever, but it's
We've got
something I
plenty
think
of time to figure out next year's.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if there's a possibility.
And by then, we'll know how did this year go? You know, how did the first 6 months of this go?
A possibility maybe of just this season, the city splitting that second person with us?
Or the city is going to pay for the full
For one.
salary for the
One person.
For one position, as well as if there's additional cost. We are committed, I believe, to bring over the food program to make sure that there's a
Right.
on the other side too.
And the payment that the kids make, will that go to the city or to Ridgeville?
It would go to the city. It's been very nominal, so between our scholarship fund for those individuals, so we've collected just a few dollars.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been more important to provide services.
Sure, sure.
And then as far as those other things that we would forego, like the lights and things like that, would we have to push that back past January, or how long do we have to wait to do that? I mean, that's sort of like right there, so in some ways, it's sort of counterintuitive to put that off.
We have to be careful about having too much of discussion about that at this point, because it's not, technically, at this moment in time, it's not a legal option to us.
Uh-huh,
We can look ahead to January, then there's the possibility that's one of the legal options we have.
I see.
But
But
to commit to that tonight, we don't really have the authority to do.
I might make this,
To somehow restore it in the second half of the fiscal year.
Oh, I see
All
what
we
you're
can
saying.
really do tonight is say, we are clearly recognizing we are eliminating those two items out of the budget and substituting the 6,000 payment to the cities.
Okay.
I think you and I should sit down again Monday, because the light project's fairly well along, and so maybe we have to find something else. But, for instance, we have the permit, we've already invested X
There
amount of
may
that.
be some
So,
motions we can.
Him and I will meet
first of the
Monday.
year to work around that. But
Do we need to spend any money on legal fees to do anything, or we?
Like, what about liability? How's that work on that?
Well, our insurance would approve the working agreement with the city,
Uh-huh.
so we'll be covered.
Who will do the working agreement? The city does that?
What's that?
Does the city do?
The city's gonna do the working agreement,
Okay.
then we're gonna have Charlie check it,
Okay.
trying to save a little
there'll
money.
probably be some nominal legal expense for Charlie to review it,
But
but he
they'll-
won't draft it, we'll let the city draft it.
Okay.
I mean, any other situation, you might say, you know, you want to be in control of the drafting of the agreement, but given who the counterparty here is,
Yeah.
and they've got on staff legal help, look, God bless you, go with it.
So we'll
Exactly
know
right.
after December 14th. I think that's our next meeting, the second Thursday of December.
Okay.
It
Is-
seems
is-
like you get is there a general feeling that this is a worthwhile project? I mean, I think
Yeah,
he
it
probably
seems
wants to
like
know
it.
that.
Yes, I think it seems like a
Yeah.
worthwhile project, definitely.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
We appreciate
look
your
forward
coming
the
to us.
Opportunity to work with you.
By the way, all the work Jerry's done, Natalie's done, he's been a wonderful help too, so,
Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot.
and Lawrence.
And everybody's had a good hand in this.
And you guys are welcome to
And
stay
you
for the rest of
don't
the
feel like you
meeting
have to
if
stay for the
don't
rest of the meeting.
Hey, Bob.
All right, what's next, guys? All right, monthly reports, Natalie.
This month, in honor of Native American Indian Heritage Month, we are celebrating the contributions of Doreen Weiss. She is the president of the American Indian Association of Illinois. She created a small liberal arts college program affiliated with Eastern Illinois University that focuses on general education and language classes for American Indians. She also sponsors preservation, culture, and native language growth projects throughout Chicago so that urban American Indians can remember their heritage while living in the city. You can read more about her on our celebration board on our website. Just a couple things I left out of my report, just quickly, I want to say. So we had another one of our District 65 half-day workshops, which I wanted to tell her that we did. We didn't have, so I had been running one for grades 1 through 3, and then another one for grades 5 through 8. We didn't have registration for the 5 through 8, so I married them together. And now we're running one workshop for grades 1 through 5, and we're doing the stories in action, and that's been successful. So we doubled our enrollment from the first one, and hopefully we'll do that again coming up here in December. So looking forward to that. That seems to be a good solution. And then moving forward into the next semester of classes, we're going to bring back the STEAM workshops because those had been successful in the past. I'm looking for new instructors to take that over since we lost Marika. So we'll be able to do grades 1 through 5 and 6 through 8. And we're going to do them all in this building, and it's going to be fantastic.
Oh, good.
So that's that update. And then I had a woman reach out to me who teaches a West African dance and drum class at Foster Studio. And for whatever reason, which is really to our benefit, they were losing their space and time. So she was looking for another place to do the class. So we did a demo this past Tuesday, and it was very successful. So we're actually going to be starting a special session. So that'll start next Tuesday for 6 weeks, kind of like a pilot session. Get people interested, and then they'll be here permanently starting in January on Tuesday nights. So Tuesdays from 8 to 9. We have live drummers that come. They had 6 drummers over here. Julie was here. They're really, really great. So I'm very happy to have them on board.
I believe Karen Courtwright's husband, Steve, is one of the drummers.
Oh, yay! That's awesome. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. So most of my time has been spent working on the spring summer brochure. It's going to be so pretty. It's just taking so long. I've been working with Sarin, she's our graphic designer, to build it. I'm trying to, which I think I had mentioned last month, I'm trying to rebrand and kind of relaunch the idea of this as Studio 908. So it's similar to like a Foster Dance Studios or Kaleidoscope or something like that, where people think of as a destination location for affordable and enjoyable community classes for both youth and adults. So she and I worked together to create a logo. I put it on here for you. This is our new Studio 908 logo. So this will be featured on our brochure, which will be kind of a marriage of our traditional brochure and a catalog of classes. So I've kind of redesigned it to include all of the pictures and the fun that people expect from a brochure from Ridgeville, but it also is a little cleaner and crisper and looks similar to what the city of Evanston offers in terms of their programming brochures. So that's great. New programs, I've tripled our instructors on payroll, so we've gone from 7 to 21. We're going from 15 class offerings to over 40, which is very exciting. These are all the confirmed classes. So on the second page here, I've got all the youth classes listed, as well as the adult classes. These are all confirmed. I have hired instructors to teach them, and I hope that they all run. So tell your friends. Also, we're introducing a new group that will be a use of our small studio upstairs. The group is calling themselves the Restorative Arts Collective. They have also a beautiful logo, but their home will be upstairs in the second floor studio. They'll be teaching classes like Nia and a special kind of senior yoga and art and painting and things for the family and for seniors and kids and adults alike. So their schedule will run a little differently than what our Studio 908 schedule runs. But I have created a page for them on our website so that people can, I'm also trying to steer people to the website to constantly check for updates and things. So they'll be able to visit our website and find out what kind of classes we're offering through the Restorative Art Collective.
So how does that work? Like, is that like they're renting the space, or are these our classes?
There are classes. So and one of Sarah, do you know Sarah Lena? Sarah Lena Kamholtz. She's been an instructor for a long time. She's one of our camp counselors. So she's kind of helping partner with me on this and helping me put it together. And Myrna Weinman, if you're familiar with Myrna, she's doing it too. She's taught here in the past.
She used to teach Nia here.
Yep, and she'll be doing it now. But so their classes will be under the guise of the Restorative Art Collective. They'll promote themselves that way, and we'll promote them that way. But it's a Ridgeville Park District program.
Okay.
So all the registration is the same. It's just instead of like going to the adult class registration form online, it will be a specific Restorative Art Collective registration form from Ridgeville that I create.
Online.
Online.
And why did you decide to do it in that way? Just sort of like specializing it?
Yeah, I mean, they had a very specialized, that space is not utilized very often, and most of the classes that exist now, all of them actually, and most of the ones that we're bringing on board require a much larger space. So I really filled up this studio space with classes, and that one just kind of sits there empty, and we use it when we can. But Sarah Lena had asked me, like, what if we wanted to teach some like classes here and there that may not run with the same kind of schedule? That's kind of our meaning like a Ridgeville thing. And I was all about that. So it's mostly for me, it was about utilizing that space in a way that there are people coming on board that are excited to run those classes and teach those classes and like offer that to the community, and are also on board with helping me market and get the word out about them. So that was kind of the impetus.
I see.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the 40 classes includes, there's not 40 here basically, so those are unnamed up here basically?
Some of these are, there's more than one. So like the yoga, we're gonna have 4 yoga classes.
Okay.
Some of the dance classes, there's gonna be 4 fairy ballet classes, 2 boys hip hop classes, 2 hip hop, yeah.
So it's every class basically?
Yes, yeah, individually, yes. And then the Restorative Arts Collective is actually not included in that 40, so that'll be additional classes that are upstairs. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. And,
Oh, there it is.
and then the last thing I had on here was our mini camps. In the past, we had offered 4 mini camps over the summer. I had some requests on the survey that I sent after camp. People were wanting things for their kids in that 5 to 7 age range, something for them to do in the summer after the 12 o'clock, the morning camp ends. So my solution, or what I'm gonna try this summer, is offering more mini camps to serve that specific age group. So the mini camps that we run in the afternoon will be very specific. So we have a sports camp, we have dance camps, Lego camps, we have this new adventure in cardboard camp. What else? We have the wizard camp. Anyway, there's a bunch, but it's gonna serve like a 6 to 10-year-old range to give those kids something to do to stay here until 4 o'clock. So making something available for them. So I've expanded that quite a bit as well. And we're adding a new soccer league this summer for kids age 3 to 9. So we're gonna do kids 3 to 5 on Tuesdays, and then kids 6 to 9 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it will run similar to how our T-ball league runs.
Is that Josha?
So that's
Yeah.
at night?
Yeah.
Or they have, early evening?
Yes.
5 o'clock,
Yeah.
6 o'clock?
Yeah. Yep.
I would just like to, I think you're doing great. I mean, this is amazing,
I
actually.
have other things for you.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably what I was going to ask for. I had just talked to Brian briefly about just sort of projecting out the costs and where we are currently.
I made a sheet for you, Anne.
Thank you.
So the projected revenue and wages is really hard to, it's hard to
Predict.
estimate because you have to take in things like Ridgeville residents pay a different rate than non-Ridgeville residents. Then you also have senior discounts. We have our scholarships. We have sampler cards. There's all kinds of different factors. So the way I got to these numbers was if all of our classes run and 5 people that are residents that pay the full resident rate register for each of them, that's what these numbers are. Some of the classes will not run. We will probably not have registration to fill all of them, that's totally fine. But, fingers crossed, optimistically, if they do all run, this is what that would look like. And then the instructor wages, I did the same thing. So if they all run for the amount of hours each of those instructors is working at an average pay rate, that's what that's gonna be.
Okay.
Plus I included what we're currently doing. So our fall 1 and fall 2 wages, and then our current revenue from fall 1 and fall 2. And that revenue also doesn't include our summer session, which will be in this fiscal year, but it is an abbreviated session, so we don't run any kids classes, they'll just be adult classes. And then it doesn't include sampler cards or the Restorative Arts Collective.
I see. This is great. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you get one?
All right. What is next on our agenda? Jerry?
You should have in your packets, remarks I typed up and 4 reports. One of them is a feedback report. The first one is the appropriations ledger. We're currently running at about 28% of the budget utilization in the general fund and overall against an expectation of 29%, so we're looking really good on the budget. The recreation fund at first glance looks like it's over budget by about $15,000 at this point. But that's kind of typical for this time of year because we have high expenses as we start the year because of the summer programs, and then we kind of hit a lull this time of year, and the budget kind of catches up to it. So we're actually right about the same level of spending as we were at this time last year on recreation, so I think we'll be okay. But better than the numbers might tell you at the moment. On the statement of revenue and appropriations, it's not a very meaningful report this time of year because it just shows that we got revenue, but it doesn't really show as measured against what. That's this report. We'll pass the levy ordinance next month, and that will layer in some more numbers on this report and make it a bit more meaningful. But the one value this report has at this moment in time is it gives us a clue to our cash flow. If you look at revenue over appropriations across all funds, we've got more revenue than expenses of about $62,000 at this point. That's going to evaporate the next month. And in fact, you've already passed a bills report tonight that takes away 61,000 of it, and that's before we pay payroll. So we'll go into negative cash flow in the next 30 days, and we'll stay negative until next March. So it's our bank balance, our fund balances that are going to be carrying us through our operations for the next several months.
Which is normal.
It's normal. The other side of that is the balance sheet. Traditionally, what I had on the back side was the general ledger trial balance. I didn't distribute that tonight, and I'll discontinue distributing it unless there's demand from you to do it. Because the balance sheet, I think, is a more readable format of the same numbers, and it's consistent with the annual report. We have the same page in the annual report, so you kind of see the same format. That other one's a little daunting at times, I think. And when I look at this, what am I looking for here? The key observations are our fund balances, where it says total fund balances to the far right are about $855,000, which is roughly equivalent to our cash on hand in the bank. And that is because we don't have any accounts payable this time of year, so those two should be in line with each other. As far as any more money coming in, at this moment in time, we don't have a lot of money coming that's anticipated from the balance sheet standpoint. We've got about $50,000 of tax revenue from prior years that we've not yet received, and that's all we're expecting to receive to fund our operations. But next month, you're going to pass the levy ordinance, and then that's going to radically change these numbers and provide that.
Could you explain just on the right,
Uh-huh.
under total liabilities,
Mm-hmm.
non-spendable, 196, is that fitting in the category you were just talking about?
And those are all of our, what fund balances by GASB accounting standards have to be classified into these categories of non-spendable, restricted, assigned, unassigned.
Yeah.
Non-spendable basically corresponds to our working cash fund. We legally cannot spend that money.
Okay, gotcha.
So this,
When you look at the 196, follow it left, see where does it come from? It comes from the working cash fund.
Okay. So that's what we use the next couple of months.
so that's,
That just makes sure we have enough, it provides us some liquidity.
that's what's in the CDs and all, that's what we've not spent from year to year.
Well, that's a kind of a view that's mixing the bank's accounts with the fund accounts, and they're really two different things. They're kind of the same and they're both different at the same time. From a bank standpoint, we have $361,000 in cash, meaning that's our checking accounts. We have $494,000 in investments, that's our CDs and money market accounts.
Yeah.
Okay?
Over here, right, top left.
Right, and it gets accounted for there in the general corporate fund.
Right.
But it's money that's owed to the recreation fund, it's owed to the other funds, and that's what the due from, due to accounting does, is spread it across the funds. Now, what's the nature of those funds? Well, how much is in recreation, how much is in IMRF, how much is in Social Security, how much is in our working cash? Working cash is money that we were allowed to raise through a one-time special deal many years ago to just provide exactly that, working cash, money in the bank for those times a year that cash flow is really tight.
And what's that
And
amount?
that's the $196,024.
So when you say
And that's
non,
classified as non-spendable because we can never spend that money. You can't like say, oh, let's start a new program, let's go hire some people, let's go
And-
build a new building and use the money for that building. We can never spend that money.
because of the law
Yes,
that states that can only be there for cash flow.
exactly.
And there's nothing the district could do
Correct.
to change that law.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so like how much would you say that we use in the next couple of months?
The simplistic way to do it is just take our total budget, which is $854,000 divided by 12, and that's your monthly spend.
Okay.
It's roughly at 60,
Yeah, yeah.
Like 60-some thousand a month?
Okay.
Uh-huh. So maybe,
we don't spend it evenly.
so we might spend 120,000 in the next couple of months without anything coming in. We've got to use that money.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now,
Okay, now, the next category of item is restricted.
yeah,
That's things like our IMRF, our liability insurance, or Social Security. That's money that is
Yeah.
designated for a specific purpose, and legally it can only be spent for that purpose.
Right.
So we can never touch that money for, if it's Social Security money, we can never touch that money except to pay Social Security. And those, we don't generally run big balances in those funds because our commitments aren't that. Okay? Recreation is a special purpose. Okay, so that money is assigned. We can't freely use it to just do any old thing we want. We can only use it for something that is clearly a recreational purpose. And it's one of our two major funds. And then our general fund is anything else. It's looked at one way, it's just general park administration. Looked at another way, it's kind of whatever doesn't fit in another category.
that's
Money that's
unassigned.
there is what we have the most flexibility with, because we can always reassign money from the general fund down to a specific fund, but we can never take money from a specific fund and move it anywhere else.
But you're using the term general fund, is that the same thing as unassigned?
No,
No.
the funds are the columns across the top, general, recreation, IMRF, liability. the category, what kind of money is it, are the non-spendable, restricted, assigned, and unassigned. And that's not, these non-spendable, restricted, assigned, unassigned, that terminology, that's GASB terminology.
Gotcha.
That's required by GASB.
All right.
The funds across the top, that's legal, that's how the state of Illinois has designated it. Here's what park districts are authorized to do.
Back to my original question about the 196,000?
Yes.
The non-spendable,
Mhm.
which sounds like there's a law that says back in the day, that was raised and it was put in that fund for the cash flow, and we can't do anything with it. Now, how else, are there other ways money goes into that fund?
No. That balance has never changed
Never
since the
changed.
one time we were allowed to raise that money.
Okay, and so like the 20,000 surplus from last fiscal year went where?
Well, first of all, we don't know that that's the final number yet. We're waiting for it because
Assuming it, for sake of discussion.
on a cash basis of our appropriations ledger, we think we have that number. And it's fund by fund. 10,000 of it was left over in the general fund. It added to the balance of the general fund.
Okay.
If 10,000 of it was left over in the recreation fund, it added to the recreation. The reason you have a balance in the corporate fund of 288,000 is that's the cumulative effect of years of little bits and pieces adding up.
Maybe you know where I'm going with this question. It's like, if it ends up at the point where we know the answer.
Well,
then-
and the reason I said not an answer is because what we don't have in the cash accounting, that
Right.
is the accounting I do month to month, is we don't have the accruals of depreciation,
Right.
and we don't have the accruals of pension.
Right.
And so those pension numbers can move our accounting around to the point that it's going to affect the
My
balance.
point is that eventually, when we have confidence of what fund that 20,000 is in, the last fiscal year, could that possibly be part of the answer to our question earlier, where would the 6,000 come from?
Well, every year when we do the budget, we have to balance our revenue sources to our planned appropriations.
Right.
Okay? And while we try to, the tricky number is the tax number. We never really know exactly the tax number. We don't know the tax number for a number of reasons. One reason we don't know it is we don't know the assessed value of the property yet.
Right.
And the way the PTEL law works is it's a mathematical formula that goes against that to then, we kind of simplistically say it's CPI.
Yeah.
It's not that simple. It gets pretty close with CPI, but it's not the to the penny answer. The to the penny answer is unknown.
Right.
The other thing that happens is what we ask for gets bumped up by 3% by the county
Yeah.
because they know not everybody's going to pay their taxes. There's going to be some problems. There's going to be legal problems. There's going to be people that protest their taxes and get them reduced. There's going to be properties that change status from for-profit to not-for-profit. There's going to be a number of reasons why we don't get that number.
So they just automatically ask for 3% more, just knowing that?
Well, there's a law that says there's a loss provision ratio that gets applied.
Okay, gotcha.
Over time, countywide, it's been about 3%. Now, if we have a year where we collect better than that, we actually bring in more tax money than we thought we
Ask
might.
for.
So there's years.
That doesn't
where
happen very often.
It's not because Brian ran the expenses that good that
No.
year, it's because the taxes. Now, we don't easily see it because this stuff doesn't all align into the same 12-month period. We're still receiving 50,000. We may never, the 50,000 that we're still owed from prior years is probably realistically money we're never gonna see.
Right.
A huge percentage of that we're probably never gonna see. We're gonna end up writing over time in bits and pieces that 50,000 gets written off. Because every year at the end of the year, one of the accounting steps I go through is a write-off process. We only keep the most recent 5 years in the accounting. And then if it's more than 5 years old, whatever we didn't collect gets written off. Does it generally run about 3%? Yeah, but actually it's usually a little better than that. So we're always we're always getting, it's a leaky bucket, we always get a little more leakage than the 3% would suggest we might. That's one aspect of it.
So the answer to your question is we don't know, and we'll never.
We'll never be able to spend and bring in revenue to the penny to the budget.
I'm talking
Because it's
about
impossible to do. But
$20,000.
what we can never do
Yeah.
is we can never go one penny over what we budget.
Right, right.
Here's the, you know, the great work that Natalie's doing, the frustration may be, it's too early to know, but we may find ourselves in a place come April where she's brought in all this great revenue.
Yeah.
But with that revenue, we had some expenses.
Yeah.
They pushed us to the limits on what we planned for in the budget,
Right.
and now we're in
Classes?
trouble because we can't spend any more money, even though we've got all this great extra revenue.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a business where revenue and expenses offset each other. This is our budget of how we're gonna spend money for 12 months, and we can't deviate from that. That's your plan for 12 months, locked in, solid, can't change it. If you get extra money, you can add to your fund balances, and then next year, that was the thought that was left unfinished. When we try to balance out the budget every year, we get pretty close. And then there's always a little bit of a fudge factor when you look at the appendix page of it, where we take revenue from other sources. Some of the other sources is revenue we raise through programs. Some of it, you'll notice, is we've actually deliberately built into the equation. We're going to tap into our funds. Now, we usually keep that number pretty small, $10,000
We
or
have a
less.
board meeting here on
Okay?
the
And you generally don't notice it.
Well, then
And
how-
Brian is generally able to run the district efficiently enough that he's usually returning $10,000 to $20,000 back in. So we've kind of got that little bit of fudge factor there to work with, to make the budget balance. That's how we get the budget to balance when we're doing that last.
So going back to what Natalie just passed out, if we're upping our programming, upping wages that we're paying to teachers, then how does that work if we're only budgeting a certain amount for recreation wages this year?
You will hit a point where you can't authorize any more expenditure. If it's going to go over this budget, you will have to cancel something because you can't spend over this,
Even though you bring in revenues for
even
it?
though you bring in revenue. Somebody could give us a great big grant that we didn't anticipate, and we're like, oh, hallelujah, we want to spend that money. It's not in the budget. You can take the grant, you can bank it, and in next year's budget, fund it, but in this year's budget, you can't.
Then how do we manage what we've just planned then?
Well, some of that, I'm presumably the budget that was passed was with a lot of that anticipated and built in.
Not really.
Then we may have to have a discussion in a few months. Because you can't spend over what you budgeted and said.
Well, we're not gonna spend over the recreation total line.
Yeah,
That'll
yeah.
never happen.
But it may be in a
In
different.
line items, we always
We
go
can
over.
move
Yeah,
around.
line item by line item, we can have adjustments. As long as the adjustments are no
Are
more
under
than
recreation.
10% of the grand total, we can move things around within it. As long as we don't go over the grand total, nobody's gonna care.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've gotta-
we
we've
said
gotta
we're
find
gonna spend
another place for these wages then.
$349,000. We can't
My heart
spend more than
literally stopped beating.
$349,000.
Found another place for what?
For these wages. I
Not
mean, those wages are
100%.
higher than what we
We already
anticipated.
have. We have 23.
I'm gonna spend 37,000 youth in the park.
We have 23, we're
and
probably
I'm
gonna spend 30.
10%
Okay,
more
so
than
where's the
that.
other 7 come from?
Yeah, well,
That's okay.
it's gonna come from areas we don't spend beneath in the same
In recreation?
recreation, yeah. I have a list upstairs.
Yeah.
I said I won't need this tonight, it's on my desk.
Yeah, let me continue. on.
So weird.
So,
Isn't it weird how it works?
it is. It's, the other thing that's, it's good that you got into the discussion of the spendable, non-spendable, restricted. I'm, because it tells me that you're seeking to understand. And I was just gonna highlight one thing that, I've kind of been working with, you know, how much fund balance should we have as an entity? And what investigative work I've done, kind of the answer is, there is no single answer, because every district is so unique in its needs. But there are definite guidelines as to how to get there. But what is universally agreed upon is, at minimum, you should have 2 months of, your unassigned money should be at least 2 months of operating expenses. Okay, we are currently sitting at 4 months of operating expenses. We're in pretty good shape.
With that untouchable money.
The
The
unassigned,
non-spent.
the 288,000 unassigned money.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that should represent, at minimum, 2 months of your operations budget.
All right.
Okay, and we're currently with that amount of money sitting at about 4 months worth. Compare that to the city of Chicago, they're sitting at like 1/10 of 1%. But like,
They're jumping.
Chicago Park District is not quite at 2 months. DuPage County is sitting at more like 6 months. You know, so when kind of, there's a website that kind of talks about all the government agencies and how are they, tracking against some of these ratios and measures. We're in the healthy range of things, which is, we've always been financially well managed that way.
All right.
Further, we'll move on. The last report I have is the outstanding items. Items that are more than 2 months old on this report are the ones I'm focused on and are of concern. The cleared, not overapproved, as a reminder, are the ones that have hit our bank accounts but have never come before you for authorization. The ones that are approved but not cleared, you've authorized them, but the party receiving the money for whatever reason has never cashed their check or taken their money. Or there's an error somewhere that needs to be researched and investigated. So either type could represent an error. On the agings of what's on this report, we've got 3 items that are at least 17 months old. They really need to be our number one priority to get resolved. Unfortunately, I now know enough about one of those that the party to whom the money was paid has passed away. There's no way they're ever going to cash their check. It's now unavoidable. We are going to have to go through a process to turn that money over to the state of Illinois as unclaimed property. We're going to incur some legal expenses possibly to do that. We're going to have to get some software because these filings are required to be on software that the state provides you at no charge. There is a lengthy process. We have to go through a process to send out certified registered mail to prove that the person doesn't answer, to be able to certify to the state that it is truly unclaimed money. So it's unfortunate we found ourselves in that position with that one item, but we're going to get to deal with that in the coming months. This is going to drag out from now. The process of turning this money over is going to drag out from now until next November 1st. And that's just
There's not another way that this can just be torn up and forgotten about? I mean,
No.
that seems a little, how much is the check for?
It's like $400 and some dollars.
So
It's $448.
We'll spend, more than the money than that. Well, there's gotta be no.
Why does this keep happening? It seems like.
No, this is the same guy. This guy passed away.
I understand that, but why do we keep having these outstanding?
Well-
things?
People don't,
The short answer is,
they don't cash their checks.
yeah, but
But
the short
that's not
answer
all.
is we don't stay on top of them to keep the time period really short. Everybody kind of thinks, not everybody. What happens is, honestly, I hate to name names in a public meeting, but, it's a pain in the butt to research these things and go through them. And she kind of just puts it to the side of her desk and is like, okay, it just gets put to the side until the next
This is
month.
happening for over and over, it seems like. I mean, the past couple of years, I've been coming to meetings and hearing this stuff.
It's the nature of the beast, and I just keep ratcheting up the noise and the pressure over the whole thing, and we finally got bit by one. But, it is what it is. So we've got to get these other ones researched. Now that we've got one that we've got to turn over, if it comes down to it, we have to turn them all over, we turn them all over. But
Why can't the estate of this dead person take care of this? Like, why can't they just deposit that into that account?
Good question.
they may have already closed the estate because she's waited so long. She's known about this for a while, that the person passed away, but it didn't get dealt with.
Okay.
Who's not a...
And I can't, Anna Christina knows the details on
Yeah,
it,
it just...
but
And have you worked with her? on this?
We've been having discussions about these for a year and a half. Like on one of them, she'll say, well, but I show it's void. Well, if it's void, the problem is something was done wrong because the other side of the transaction didn't go through. So why was it voided? What was the other transaction? We have to go through a process of tracing, play 20 questions where we keep tracing the transaction to figure out where's the piece that didn't get done right. And she'll work on it for a while, then she'll get busy with something else, and then months will go by before it gets back on the radar. We start over at square one because she forgot what she's done already on it, and we keep going round in a circle. But it needs constant dedication. You got to take them one by one and tackle it. The other thing that, she'll have a tendency to want to focus on the more recent ones because they're the easiest ones to solve.
Yeah.
And so, like this month, she got rid of half a dozen of them, but they were all just a couple months old because they were the easy ones to solve.
Well, that's
The ones
good.
that are the messiest and hardest are the oldest, because you gotta go the furthest, and it's harder to find people, ask questions, and so,
All right, great.
it's a frustrating, we're never gonna eliminate them, to your point, Debbie, because just people lose checks,
No, I
mistakes happen.
understand that. It just seems like-
But they never should get, in my opinion, there's no reason there's ever anything on here that's more than 6
It
months
seems
old.
like a job that's not being done,
13 of them on this list you just passed in the bills, so they go away. As long as the cash is checked. Then there's others,
Yeah, I mean, especially if you keep working on it, it doesn't get done, that's very concerning.
Then within a month or two, they'll self-correct because it's just a timing issue of, okay, the charge came through and next month it'll be on the bill. Or the check was issued on the last day of the month and so it won't clear until next month's bank statement. So those kind of things we'll take care of. So 1 or 2 months on here, they're not even worth spending
No,
time
but
and
that's
effort
not
on.
what-
But when they hit the 3-month mark, they ought to be like cleared up by the
There's
4th
one for
month.
14 months here, 9 months,
17 months, that's
7
all.
months, 17 months, I mean,
I just want to say something. One, it is inappropriate for us to talk about any employee, period. Number 2, we don't have a policy that I'm aware of that addresses this, and I think that's an answer for us as a policy board to address, because I do think you're spot on. We ought to have a policy about that 3-month, and then at that point, do something different before it gets to 6 months. I agree with you, I'm not arguing with you. But we don't have a policy, I want to be clear. And so to run an organization, our job is to do policy. It's our director's job to supervise, and if we need to talk about any employee, we do that in closed session, period.
I have a question about policy though. What, are you gonna have a policy that the job gets done? I mean, I don't really.
well, and you can also have the policy, but some college kid didn't cash his check.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's a,
Well, the
And we had that
policy,
this year.
I mean, we could we could make it in our policy that if
Right.
your cash is not, if
Right.
it's not cashed in 90 days, then it's void.
in other words,
We
that
can
would be
print that on our
void.
checks.
What they call them last time.
They won't let us do that?
to be written
They
in your
work for the money, they're
contract.
entitled to the money.
Okay,
We don't own it, they own it.
okay.
It's
I've
our
seen other
property,
checks
it's
where it
their-
said, if this
Right.
this check isn't cashed in 180 days, it's
void.
void.
Right.
Why can't you?
We can do that, then we have to issue another check
Oh,
to them.
because,
We don't get to keep the money.
Right.
The money is their money, it's not our money.
so even if we had a policy saying that it wouldn't, saying you have to cash your check within so much time, it doesn't matter.
If they don't cash it, then we have to give them another
So it
check.
wouldn't matter.
The check is void, but the liability of us to pay them remains.
Remains.
You can't
Because they
escape.
did the work.
You
and we
reported it
owe
to the
money.
IRS that you paid them the money, you gotta give them the money.
Right.
All right, let's move on.
All right.
Next.
Last item, annual report, we don't have it yet, I haven't seen the draft yet. I heard from Kate Moulton today that she expects to have us the draft by the end of next week. That's, fine, we'll probably have it presented at the December meeting then.
Is that along with our audit?
That's our audit annual report together. Once I see a draft, there's about another 2 weeks worth of work between her and I going back and forth, and there's some work that Brian and Natalie have to do before we have the finished product. So we've got we're receiving it a little later than we normally do for whatever reason. Some years they're this late, but we're getting into crunch time because we've got filing deadlines in December that we have to have this for. So that's where we're at on that. That's it. I'll remind you, we have the levy ordinance next month, so we need enough folks here to be able to pass that.
Okay. Well, that's one thing that Debbie says she can't be here next month, so I just want to get a sense of other people, if December 14th will work for the rest of the board.
Quick item. We could do it the 13th.
Debbie's not going to be here.
Oh, you can't be the 13th either?
No.
Okay.
So,
I was going to say, the 13th at 7:30, we'd have to set up the room, but
Yeah, thanks.
yeah. Okay, so moving on, old business. Oh,
no, I got my report.
oh, sorry.
I'll be much briefer than Jerry and Natalie, I promise.
Yeah, I thought we were done with it.
That was brief.
It was your question.
Sorry.
It was good stuff.
Very busy month at Ridgeville, several items being completed or prepared for in the near future. We removed the soccer pitch at Cayman West, moved out of the park and returned it to Team Evanston. The pitch was courtesy of Rich Gallen and Team Evanston. I'm going to work on getting that for next summer, see if we can get it during our soccer program. It would be a great thing for the kids. We're working on the lights at Cayman East. That's why I want to meet with Jerry on Monday again to see how we can proceed with rewiring the poles. We may have to find another capital improvement issue with the city. Anyways, Lighter Park drinking fountain has been tested and retested. We have replaced some parts, the fountain itself, on the fountain itself, and waiting for the results of the test. It passed. Okay, it passed. So we're in good shape there. In the spring, we'll be retested. All fountains in the city will be retested. So we're in good shape. Tim, I don't know his last name, from the water department, outstanding. Very patient with us, and we're patient with him, and he does a great job. Natalie's been working on a spring summer brochure. You know all about that. Halloween happening. We approximately 50 children and their caregivers, so the place was pretty crowded. Gave away pumpkins, enjoyed live music. Joel Frankel, who was on the outstandings list, was paid $250 to perform. Ridgeville Foundation, I don't know if you guys heard, was held at the Firehouse Grill on November 5th. They raised about $3,800. Natalie and I secured several items for their raffle and silent auction, which helped them raise some of that money. And then the City of Evanston, we just went through with Cicely's request and Bob Dornicker. I can't emphasize enough, Bob Dornicker he's aces. So at any rate, we're going to put that on the agenda for December again. And finally, the play circuit equipment at Brummel Park was delivered on November 1st. Installation was supposed to begin this week. It's now scheduled for Monday. And Monday, the weather next week is going to be in the upper 40s, low 50s all week. So we should get it done, hopefully, within 5 or 6 days.
Oh, good.
That's it.
All right. Next, old business. So I'm going to bring up our strategic planning and goals again. We had discussed that last meeting, and I'd like to open that up for discussion.
I have one item for you in that area. You had discussed and asked me to check with Charles, discussed about having a seminar, hiring somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And then having it as a non-agenda item, and you cannot do it. You can do it, but it has to be open to the public.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would have to be posted and open to the public. Somebody could sit here for the whole time. They'd be bored out of their mind, but they could do it. The only way, one clarification through this whole process was, let's say all 5 commissioners went to the seminar in January sponsored by the Illinois Associations of Park Districts. That's kosher. You can do that. You can all go to the same meeting or class session, as long as it's part of the Illinois Association of Park Districts or a government association, no problem. But to have something here, close the door and be instructed and go through strategic planning with a professional has to be open to the public.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian, my understanding is that the legal rule is any elected group like this, if there's going to be a quorum and it's not part of the open meetings, didn't get notice, you can't talk about your business, but you can still go out. I mean, we could meet, go out and ride a roller coaster.
Right.
That's not against the rules. We just can't talk about our
Right, but you
business.
gotta be very careful. I mean, like, if I were to walk in, if I was a taxpayer and I walked into
Firehouse.
Firehouse Grill and there's 5 of you sitting there, it's like, uh-oh. You know, it's not a good thing. Not a good policy.
Legally, it's okay,
Yeah.
as long as you're not talking about
Right.
business.
Right.
But our meeting, what we're doing is part of
That's
business. That's
business,
strategic
right.
planning. So that we have to do 24-hour or 48-hour notice.
Right.
Yeah.
And public's invited to sit in on it.
Well, I love the idea, and I hope we could do it. I thought that the price what I thought, if I recall correctly, that price was not too expensive per hour, and for what we might get out of it, which I would commit to doing fully. If we schedule something like that, I'll come and I'll be a part of it and use that and be committed to using that process to help us move forward in planning. I think it's a wise way to go. And I would love to have an outsider come in to give us some professional guidance on that.
Anybody else?
Well, I just feel like strategic planning, didn't you guys do that when Brennan was president? Wasn't there some strategic planning and all of that? Where's that plan?
No, we never did that. We did an employment plan. We've done some of that. He and I worked on some stuff kind of behind the scenes and presented it to the board. But we never actually sat down as a group doing any kind of strategic
It
planning.
was talked about, I guess.
Yeah, he did a lot of work though with our employment manual and just the code of ethics for the board and things like that. So, I worked with him quite a bit on that. So, but even in that process, we talked about wanting to do that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are some gaps in some of our policies that we have here as a district. We have a nepotism policy, but, we don't really have a full employment policy. There's a lot of, for me, it's about what our goals are as a district, what our values are as a district. And frankly, I don't find it that easy to talk about in these meetings when we're trying to get, the bills, everything else that we're trying to like hash out each time. And I feel like when we're faced with things like, Bob Dorniker, tonight, I think it's a great program, he's presenting. But like I was saying with YOU when I was on that board with them, when you're presented with something that maybe is just a little out of the comfort zone of what you're used to doing, or if you're faced with deep cuts, for instance, like YOU right now is facing some deep cuts because they've lost some of their 21st century grants and things like that. So where does your decision making go? And so the way they did is they really set up a framework. So right now it's happening. So they decided that they'd rather keep less sites with more services rather than having a broad reach. So, it's just things like that. Just kind of, why is it important to us to have a program like Bob Dorniker is presenting? Is that one of our goals? And moving forward, like down the line, 2 years from now, when there's a new board, then you've got this sort of set of guidelines that has been decided upon, which could be tweaked, but at least it's like a document or it's a working document.
Again, I'm not in support of it, I have to say, that I would not. I really feel like, it's just not that big a deal. We should take one project, see it to fruition, then do another project. I just don't see where we need to spend the money. And, I personally can't buy into it.
Express my
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I expressed, some thoughts to you.
Yeah, I appreciate your
and,
sending that over.
I mean, given our size and the amount of money we spend, I just think, to get into the philosophical stuff, we should do what we do here as a group. When we have issues, we should deal with them as a group in a meeting. And we only have so much money to spend. We don't have a lot of choices in terms of where we can spend our money. We've only got 7 parks and, 4 buildings. So I think it's relatively easy to do that when we sit down and talk about the budget. We want to spend the money on Brumble. We want to spend money somewhere else. We want to spend money on a project like that. I just think we deal with these things as they happen. And to kind of sit in a room for sort of without the public involvement, I'm not comfortable with. I just think we should do it in a meeting during the budget process. How are we going to spend our money? That's how we define who we are. That's what we are. So to kind of conceptualize, I mean, we know what we want to accomplish. We want to have good programs. We want to have clean parks. We want to have good buildings. And I think that's basic. So I don't know that we need to reinvent that every month or every year. We just need to spend our money wisely and give benefit to the community. So I don't get, spend another $1,500. I would much prefer to spend it on Wi-Fi for a building. Let's commit to it, or not. I mean, we'll discuss it and make a decision next month. But I just think we sort of get into the posture that we're bigger than we are. We have $635,000 of tax money to spend, plus the other money, the revenue that we collect, in the program. So how many decisions can we make? I don't think there's a lot of decisions, So again, let's just do what we have to do in these meetings. Meetings take a little bit longer, so be it. We start a little bit earlier, we go a little bit later. But the public should be involved in this, and I think, that's why we should do it in a regular schedule event. So that's my opinion. I'm not in favor of spending a Saturday with somebody to tell us what we should think.
Rob, do you have anything to add?
I do. Thank you for including this. It's very interesting. We have very varying ideas about what we think Ridgeville should or should not be. I appreciate everyone's thoughts. I've been in Evanston for 17 plus years, and I don't think that we've done enough as a district and as a board. I think strategic planning is a great idea because it allows us to create. I like to be creative. I mean, when I heard Bob Dorfker coming here, and Cicely, or Alderman Fleming, I should say, come in with ideas about collaborating, I thought it was great. I was like, wow. And I wasn't even involved in any of that. But I'm super excited to see something happening. And if I can just use an example of, there's a young man that Brian hires every year. His name is Preston DaCosta. I don't know if you guys know him. His mom recently died, so he had some tough times. But this kid grew up 2 blocks from here, right across from Reba Park. And I've been knowing him for 17 years of his life. He's now, I think, 29 years old. And why am I bringing him up? I'm bringing him up because I helped raise him. He didn't have a father. Dan Coyne and the neighborhood helped. You helped. Brian helped. He is now a teacher, science teacher, 6th grade at King Arts. I'm interested in making sure kids like that, all right, and all kids have an opportunity. If we could do this at each place that we have, collaborate with the city and open our doors, we should be doing this. Strategic planning, we don't want to do it. I don't get that. If someone wants to help us, and we've got amazing resources in this town, if we can't see them coming in to help, $1,500 is nothing for someone to help us think bigger and beyond. I'm not going to be here forever. And what I want Ridgeville to be is somewhere that maybe my kids one day can be on the board, or some kid in the neighborhood will, someone like Preston will come back here and serve. Okay? It's not just about the way it's been, and we're small potatoes, and I'm not trying to make Ridgeville some huge thing. I just want it to be more. And thinking about that and dreaming about that there's nothing wrong with that. So I do support someone coming in and helping us to dream a little bit and try to rethink things and figure that out. So I appreciate your effort there, and I'm on board with that.
So given that we're not all on the same page, would all the commissioners feel comfortable if we were to approve this, to give 100%, to give it a shot, to try it? Would you participate is the question, I guess, because something like this couldn't work, I don't think, unless all of us jump in and give it a shot,
I'm not sure I would participate.
Okay.
Because I really, I'd have to really believe that it's worth it, the money, and I don't. I think everything, Rob's talking about happens. I think we collaborate with the city, we have a great relationship with the city. I think we need to work more at these meetings, but I can't say, I'm not saying I won't, but I'm saying that that's what you asked for.
Well, I'd like to call it for a vote.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept this offer by the consultant. I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but there was a letter last month.
Yeah, Laura Dell is the consultant.
But it's spelled out in her letter that we would hire her as a consultant to provide us with some strategic planning consultation, in particular for the commissioners and staff. You guys are part of this. Everybody could come, but some session that people could schedule and work out at some point that would allow us to collaborate in an open session so that public could watch. But I would like to propose that this consultation be approved.
Second.
What are we gonna rule out, since this wasn't a budgeted item, what are we gonna eliminate from the
Yeah,
budget?
how are we paying for it?
Well, I was looking at the budget, and there's a couple of categories that I thought we could look at. For one thing, our Park District Association expense, I'm not sure that we all actually go down to the meeting at the end of January. So that might be a way to look at that. Also, part-time office personnel wages. I don't really know that we even do that. So I guess I was looking at those two categories, and those are part of the corporate
We would
budget.
need a second, though, to get a discussion going.
Yeah, second.
Second.
Okay, sorry.
I'm just wondering how we're paying for it. Part-time office wages, can you take money out of that to pay for this?
Because they're both in the corporate fund, yes.
And then I'm not sure, I don't know what the breakdown exactly is for the yearly conference, but I know a lot of us don't go. So we budget for it, and I'm not sure we use those funds.
Maybe you can't go, because if you do this, there's no money
Right.
there, so.
Well, I would like to see what that breakdown is.
Yeah, well, the association fee, we don't have, but it's gonna be $5,500, $6,000, something like that. And that should be coming soon. That comes from Illinois Association of Park Districts. Anna's going to go. You're going to vote on the credentials tonight. You're going to pass that in a few minutes. So you're at $7,000 before you know it.
How do we vote on something like this or pass it if we don't know where the money's coming from?
Well, we're looking at those two categories.
I mean, we've got the fund, and we've heard already that,
Wait, I'm just asking you, okay?
Yeah.
But what I don't understand is like, part-time office help? Doesn't that need to be a discussion with Brian about how much that's needed?
How much is that needed?
How much what?
Part-time office help.
But we haven't used it this year yet. And maybe we'll use it, but I highly doubt it.
Okay. I mean,
So
there hasn't been
that's
any
a
of that.
category that could be possible then.
I mean, the bottom line is, my experience in the last 4 years as a commissioner here is that there is $1,500 available in these funds for this kind of thing. It's not that tight. There's room.
Most likely you are correct, but don't do too many $1,500 things.
I understand that there's not complete agreement on this, but I think, it might help for us all to be open and see if something like this could work.
I'm not participating, so,
I'm not.
I want to say your part-time office personnel is your salary for your note taker at the meetings here.
Oh, we want that stayed.
You have to look at the-
No, I think that's part of the corporate secretary
No,
job,
that's
isn't
Anna
it?
Christina. Anna Christina is corporate secretary. This
Okay.
the note-taking function is not the corporate secretary.
All right, well, I'd like to at least note that there was a majority that wanted to do this.
Well, we'll have to vote on it, though.
Okay, all in favor?
no.
Aye.
Well, maybe
But you only
roll
break
call,
the
just for the
tie,
record.
Right?
Pardon me?
You break a tie.
Yep,
Okay, go ahead,
Go ahead.
I'll break the tie.
I mean, it's not-
I'm for it.
I'm not.
Have a meeting,
But for the record, I think it would be helpful to have a roll call
Okay.
for the vote. So just by commissioner alphabet.
Commissioner Beatty,
Aye.
Commissioner,
Kavod? Aye.
Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Braun,
No.
and Commissioner McCourt.
No.
All right. Capital improvement plan, I don't really have anything for the capital improvement plan this month. The middle school program, security at Ridgefield. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. Just in the past couple of months, I've stopped by, 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and basically there's one person here, either Natalie's here by herself, Anna's here by herself. It gets dark at 4 o'clock now. I'm concerned that this part of the building is completely open at times. People can just walk in, they can walk up. I know there's locks at the top of the stairs. But I think we should think about having some sort of a buzz-in or something at the main door, or camera. Brian said that there used to be a camera, but it was taken out.
There still is, it works.
Okay.
The monitors would have to be put in each office.
Another thing is, our code hasn't been changed in years, I don't think. So, just things like that, I think we need to be just a little bit more aware of who's entering the building, and there's too much weird stuff going on out in the world these days that I'm concerned. I think I'm concerned if people are here by themselves. So I just think like over the next month or so, if we could, look into some of those things.
Sure.
Can you do that, Brian? Come back to us with some ideas?
Yeah, the buzz-in is, I don't know anything about that kind of stuff, but we'll look into it. We have monitors, we have a camera set up, that's easy. We can change the code at a strategic time, probably late December before January session starts. The other thing you should know, there's a fire door on the second floor, so you could lock yourself in. And generally speaking, in the afternoon, late afternoon, Natalie and Anna are here unless one of them's running there. I'm here till mid to late afternoon, but not way late afternoon. So at any rate,
And I'll pop in from time to time, and Anna's here by herself, but she has that fire door closed, and you have to buzz to get in.
But there is also movement just down
Yeah,
here.
you're right. Your point is well
And,
taken.
you know, I mean,
She
there's
may
like
find
nooks and
therapy
crannies
as
down
well.
here. So,
We have
There
programs.
will be programming at almost all hours of the day, so if we have to buzz somebody in, that's gonna be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, but I mean, once there's a program, we could roll the door down. But to buzz somebody in, like, in the morning, people come in and register, people come in and take a drop-in and take classes, so the door's open. Late afternoon, on days it's not scheduled, maybe we do roll it down. Something we'll look at.
thank you. Let's see. IAPD Annual Conference Credential Certificate.
This is your annual form. Anna attends the luncheon where they vote, and so basically, the following individuals were designated to serve as delegates at the annual business meeting. Anna's delegate number 1. I'm the first alternate. Anybody want to be the first alternate or the second alternate, you're more than welcome. And then we just need it approved and signed.
Do you need a motion or just a
I think so, yeah.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So this is just attending the meeting, or?
They would vote on major issues.
Okay.
She's a voting member.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So there's-
okay. For
the
for
issues-
the Illinois Park districts.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know what the issues are. They haven't been discussed. They haven't been posted yet.
Okay. Did we ever hear about what happened with the property tax freeze?
It's stalled.
It's stalled?
Yeah.
Because that's not good for park districts.
The property tax freeze would not be good for parks.
No.
So by it stalling, that's good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's citizens' comments, part 2.
Actually,
I could go
we're on.
back and finish a thought when we were in the financials discussion. I didn't want to leave an important point left unsaid. I said that, you know,
Should be
with the Natalie example,
Commissioner.
Oh,
Collins.
she brings in all this revenue and we start to do the expenses. With the current budget, we wouldn't be able to spend over it. And before that, I talked about what's called an amended budget, which is unrealistic because of the process we have to follow for the city partnership. There is yet another provision that we would be able to use in the example of, in the case of unexpected revenue, you can pass what is called a supplemental ordinance that does not require going through anything, but it is restricted only to an amount equal to the additional revenue you brought in. So there is a mechanism by which we can handle a situation where we are faced with unexpected money. But the trick would be, you would have had to at least met your original budget number for revenue, and then money above and beyond that would be your extra money.
Supplemental.
And is there a timeline on that?
No.
You could do it
That
anytime
is
within the
really-
year?
It's a beautiful thing, because we have it and the city doesn't. The city and the park district follow parallel ordinances that are almost word for word the same. There's one little thing they do a little different, and there's one thing we get to do different, and this is it. And that we can pass, they don't have the ability to do a supplemental one. And the provisions regarding publication, notice, public hearings shall not apply to supplemental ordinances.
Okay.
So.
And so is
We
a
would
supplemental
probably want
ordinance,
Charlie
could
to
you have?
validate that I understand what I'm reading, but it's, you know, it's a logical thing that we should have some way that if we're coming to a windfall of money, that we have a way to spend it.
But like say with more programming, for instance, can there be supplemental expenses as well?
Only to the extent that there was the supplemental revenue.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then that would solve that.
Yeah.
And so we would have to like submit that to the state somehow?
We would have to draw it up in the format like our regular ordinance, pass it as an ordinance, but that's as far as it goes.
And do you have to present that like to the general public first?
No,
No. Oh, that's interesting.
it sidesteps all those things.
Wow. Okay, well, that's good
But
news.
like I said, we've never done it. We would want to make sure Charlie's on board with it, and probably have a conversation with the auditors to make sure that they understand it and agree, so.
Well, that's good news, Natalie. Yay! Sorry, I did those out of order, but call of the commissioners.
My name's on there, but I don't think it needs to be. That's just Anna needs to know it's not just me, it's for all of us. It's just something we agreed to, that every meeting, at some point, we'll have a call to commissioners, which I'm describing as just a chance to talk for 10 seconds or 30 seconds about anything you might be hearing about in the district. My report is simply that Brian helped out quite a bit with Lincoln School. The PTA made a decision to have a Sunday after Mother's Day picnic at the Ellis Park for the school. So we're looking at, we got the permit going and they did approve it. And so we'll work out the details. We've got time, but it'll be an event where we can bring the school community to our side of the tracks, which includes their district. I mean, Lincoln goes all the way to Sherman, almost all the way up to Dempster, and then all the way down to Mulford. So it's a pretty large area on this side of the tracks, and many people at Lincoln didn't realize that students were coming from this area. So this is their effort to kind of come to our side of town and get to know the kids a little bit. So, and we're also looking at maybe having a band like Sweet Molly or somebody there to help us with that event.
You're not going to be bringing any illegal wood or anything?
No.
I just want to make sure that
We're doing everything by permit, right, Brian? We talked about that.
All right.
I just wanted to bring up something about Brummel. She was mentioning that Yvonne had passed away.
Right.
And she was, had done so much for that. And I just wonder if there'd be something like you're doing with like the celebration, if we could maybe celebrate her in some way.
Yeah.
So I think that would be nice.
Set you up with Michelle. Michelle's also, I couldn't hear her too well tonight. Did she ask about renaming Brummel Park?
She didn't in this.
She sent an email out.
Yes.
But give you a history. Yvonne was a Brummel Park neighbor until about 15 years ago when she moved to assisted living with another gal named Anna Boekstegen, and they were Brummel Park neighbors who worked very hard, keep the neighborhood safe, keep the kids involved, get more programs. She was a great lady. I haven't seen her in 10 years, but she was outstanding and a big asset to Ridgeville and the neighborhoods. So.
Yeah, so I think it'd be nice
Yeah.
to, find out more about her and celebrate her.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
she was one of the original Brummel Park neighbors.
Maybe if you didn't want to rename the park, name the play circuit or something that's being installed in her.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, we can dedicate it in the spring when it's warm and done.
With a little plaque.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Great.
I asked the aldermen of the 8th and 9th Ward in the future, because I'd like to go to ward meetings to not have a meeting on the day that we have our meetings. I just thought that was significant. I was like, hey. And Alderman Fleming said that she didn't really think about that. She was just trying to get a meeting in. But I was like, man, it's hard in the city when they have meetings and board meetings of schools, and we have them all on the same day. There was a big police meeting tonight that I wanted to attend, but needed to be here. And my son was in a play with Mother Theater. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
I don't have any.
Nothing for me.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
No executive session?
Brian's requested that we put that
Yeah, we've
off.
got some issues, so we're not.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so can I hear a second?
Second.
All right. We're free.